In this video tutorial, I'm going to walk you through a few of perhaps the lesser known tips and tricks for you to play around with to make a movie in iMovie and have it maybe look a bit more professional than you've done in the past. And like most things technology, it does just take a little bit of time tinkering, playing around, seeing what works for what effect, and then getting rid of everything that doesn't fit with your message. So, getting started, whenever I am making a film, of course you can import media from wherever you have it saved, but I always like to gather all of my files on a folder on my desktop and name the files so they're easy for me to work with. Then it's just a matter of dragging or dropping. If I click audio and then I select effects, I have lots of different sound effects for me to play around with. So this film has coffee, it has coffee pouring, so I'm going to find a sound effect that works for me. You'll also notice that in audio, any music that you have in your iTunes library you can pull in, but it's important for me to note that you do not have the rights to all music in iTunes. So if you're putting together a movie for a project, I actually recommend this website, Bensound. So I can download music for free, and it asks, since it's under a Creative Commons license, if I download and I use the music, please just give credit to www.bensound.com, and you'll notice that in the video description. The most important command for you to familiarize yourself with in iMovie is Command B. That's what I'm doing right here, and I'm just chopping up my footage a little bit. And once I have created a few different cuts, I go up to that little crop icon, and now I'm playing around with Ken Burns. So I always recommend when students are filming, don't zoom on your phone, but if you do need to zoom, either move your body or use the Ken Burns effect. So you can see I can decide where the footage is going to start and end, and then I can reverse it for a little bit of a zoom in, zoom out effect here. And often I'll just play around with that. I might not go ahead with that in my final edits, but I'm just trying to see how that looks right here. So if I select the three little circles in the top toolbar, that allows me to choose from different clip filters or audio effects. And one of my favorite is actually just the flipped crop filter, because that's going to give the illusion that I've had different camera angles in my filming. So I often recommend that you use clip filters sparingly. If you are going to use one, I would recommend use it consistently across all of your clips, or maybe just explore the flipped selection. And also, it's worth pointing out that you can layer sound effects and music. So what I'm doing right now is I'm actually fading in my music soundtrack that I received from Bensound, so that basically the volume is going to increase as the track plays, and I have faded out that sound effect. So if you click and grab the circle, you can decide how long the duration of the fade in or fade out is. So that's a really useful tool to play around with. I also want to point out that other than Command B to split the clip, if I wanted to extend a section, all I need to do is select it, and then I can drag it either from the front or from the end, like I'm doing here. So I can, again, extend the time that that clip is playing that way. That's another way to extend or to cut back on the time that that clip shows. So I've also added in a bit of footage that I took on campus. You'll notice that's not me scrolling, but that's me walking. So that always looks a little bit nicer if you are physically scrolling. If I right click on that clip, and then I select detach audio, this is really useful for post-production. What that means is I'll be able to drag the audio over so that I can lead in, so that we hear the audio, we hear the sounds of campus, and then the cut leads right into the campus. So that's a really nice editing feature. If I select titles, it's worth pointing out either that I can add titles in between clips, or I can actually add the title on top. So there's two different ways that you can use titles there. And also, for those of you who are font fans, it's worth pointing out that, of course, iMovie, just like any of the iWork, Pages, or Keynote, has a lot of fonts to choose from. But if you've added any fonts, and my place to go to download fonts is dafont.com. If you've downloaded any fonts, once I select fonts, if I go all the way to the bottom and I select all fonts, any fonts that you have downloaded, you can also incorporate in iMovie. So that's another little pro tip, because I think often in films produced with iMovie, we're seeing the same fonts again and again and again. So if you add your own more unique fonts, that just sort of distinguishes yours apart from the rest. Another tip that I like to use, and I should mention that all of the coffee footage comes from Pixel's video. I'll link to that in the post. That's also Creative Commons videos that you can use. So you see that I've dragged that video clip over top of another clip. And when I select those two boxes, I have a few options here. I can do picture-in-picture, so you see the actual, that video is small, and I could extend how big that is. I can do split screen, which is really useful if you have two different characters that you're trying to present, or I can also drag it over top. And then you'll notice at the top, I can play around with the opacity. So when I do that, I have kind of a nice video blending into another video. That's a really cool effect that's worth playing around with, is just moving the opacity over. So you can see I've got these two different clips that just sort of blend nicely together. And again, that might not work with the clips that you are using, but it's something that I'd recommend that you play around with a little bit. And I also want to point out in the toolbar, you have the color correction option, which looks like the color palette. And this is also worth tinkering around with. You can play around with the hue and the saturation of your footage. And my recommendation to filmmakers is be consistent. Or if the color, the tone, the saturation is going to change in your footage, it needs to do so for a reason. If you have a lot of footage that's not consistent and that's not aligned with the message or the narrative, that's kind of just a strange thing to do. So a good rule of thumb is always be consistent when possible. And if you want to add voiceover or do some narration, I come up to Window and then Record Voiceover. So you'll see the little microphone there. I hit that and then I click the record button. It will give you a nice 3, 2, 1 countdown. So then you know exactly when it is that you are recording. I click Stop. And then I can drag, I can fade in or out of my narration, and I can add it to any of the clips. So again, I can blend that, and you'll notice that when I've dragged it, it's automatically going to fade the music down, which is another nice feature. When it's time to save, I go File, Share, and I select File. I can rename the movie, and then you would simply be either uploading to your YouTube channel. You can also upload to Google Drive. But there's one other thing I want to show you that's just going to level up on your film a little bit. So I've come to Google Images. I've made sure that I have searched for images which are reuse, and I'm going to save that. I'm going to save it to my desktop, so it's just a matter of dragging and dropping. I'm going to drag that right over the top of my footage, and then I will make sure that it fits. And now you'll notice I have kind of these nice cinematic bars. I'm also going to include that image in the post so you can grab it and do the same if you'd like. So again, I just find that makes the video look and feel a bit more professional. It might not work with every movie, but again, there's really no hard rule of thumb. It's just important that you trial things out, you experiment a little bit with the software. Good luck, filmmakers.